The Beatles and Bob Dylan are titans of 20th century music, each reshaping the cultural landscape in profoundly different ways. The Beatles, with their infectious pop melodies and Beatlemania frenzy, defined the early 1960s, while Bob Dylan emerged as the voice of a generation, blending poetic lyricism with folk authenticity. Their paths collided in 1964, sparking a mutual influence that would alter both their trajectories. In a recent revelation, Paul McCartney credited Dylan with introducing the Beatles to marijuana, a watershed moment that catalyzed their creative evolution. McCartney also shared nuanced insights into Dylan's unconventional singing style, challenging critics who dismiss it as unrefined. This article delves into the historical meeting, its impact on the Beatles' music, and McCartney's perspective on Dylan's artistry. In August 1964, the Beatles arrived in New York City amid the frenzy of their first U.S. tour. Fresh off the success of A Hard Day's Night, they were global icons. Meanwhile, Bob Dylan, the 23-year-old folk troubadour, had risen to prominence with protest anthems like Blowin' in the Wind. The two acts represented contrasting worlds, the Beatles' polished pop versus Dylan's raw, introspective folk. Their meeting at the Delmonico Hotel was orchestrated by mutual curiosity. Dylan, intrigued by the Beatles' energy, reportedly asked, "What are we going to do about these Beatles? They're stealing the youth of America." The encounter began awkwardly. Dylan, assuming the Beatles were already cannabis users, offered them a joint. McCartney later recalled, "We were a bit embarrassed to say we'd never smoked it." Dylan's confusion stemmed from mishearing, "I want to hold your hand," as lyric, "I can't hide as I get high." The Beatles, then strictly recreational drinkers, hesitated but eventually partook. The experience was transformative. Ringo Starr famously laughed uncontrollably, while John Lennon attempted to sketch a UFO. This initiation marked the Beatles' first step into psychedelia, foreshadowing their later experimentation with LSD. The introduction to marijuana coincided with a shift in the Beatles' songwriting. Post-1964, their lyrics grew introspective, moving beyond teenage romance. Rubber Soul, 1965, exemplified this maturation, with tracks like Norwegian Wood, This Bird Has Flown, reflecting Dylan's narrative style. Lennon admitted Dylan's influence, stating, "I started writing more personal songs after meeting him." Cannabis also fostered collaborative creativity. McCartney described their studio sessions becoming more experimental. "We'd try things just because they sounded weird." The looser, improvisational vibe permeated albums like Revolver, 1966, where tracks such as Tomorrow Never Knows incorporated tape loops and Easter motifs. While LSD later dominated their psychedelic phase, the initial weed experience opened a door to artistic risk-taking. McCartney on Dylan's singing. Authenticity over technique. McCartney's admiration for Dylan extends beyond their shared history. Addressing Dylan's voice, often polarizing for its nasal tone and unconventional phrasing, McCartney defends it as a vehicle of authenticity. "It's not about technical perfection," he argues. "It's about feeling. When Bob sings, you believe every word." Dylan's vocal style, rooted in folk traditions, prioritized lyrical content over melody. Tracks like The Times They Are A-Changin' carried a gravitas that resonated with 1960s upheavals. McCartney contrasts this with the Beatles' harmonic precision, noting, "We came from the Everly Brothers in rock and roll. Bob showed us you could be more raw." This rawness influenced Lennon's work, notably You've Gotta Hide Your Love Away, which mimicked Dylan's acoustic storytelling. The relationship was reciprocal. Dylan's 1965 Electric Turn, exemplified by Like a Rolling Stone, drew backlash from folk purists but mirrored the Beatles' embrace of rock innovation. Dylan later admitted the Beatles' popularity pressured him to evolve. They were doing things nobody was doing. Their chords were outrageous. Meanwhile, the Beatles' foray into deeper lyricism encouraged Dylan to explore more personal themes. His 1966 album Blonde on Blonde blended poetic abstraction with rock energy, a synthesis akin to the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This cross-pollination underscored the era's collaborative spirit, bridging genres and audiences. The mid-1960s were a crucible of change. The Beatles' weed experience with Dylan symbolized the era's countercultural shift, where artists challenged societal norms through music and substance exploration. Dylan's role as a gateway to cannabis for the Beatles mirrors his broader influence in legitimizing introspective songwriting in mainstream pop. McCartney's reflections also highlight evolving perceptions of vocal artistry. Dylan's success proved that imperfection could be powerful, paving the way for idiosyncratic voices like Lou Reed and Tom Waits. Similarly, the Beatles' experimentation post-Dylan emboldened bands to blend genres, from psychedelia to progressive rock. The 1964 meeting between Dylan and the Beatles was more than a celebrity encounter. It was a cultural exchange that redefined both acts. For the Beatles, Dylan's weed and lyrical depth spurred artistic growth, while Dylan absorbed their pop sensibilities and audacity. McCartney's candid recollections underscore the enduring respect between these icons. In defending Dylan's singing, he champions the idea that music's power lies in its ability to convey truth, not just technical prowess. Their intertwined legacies remind us that innovation often arises from unexpected collaborations, forever altering the soundtrack of our lives. Today, the ripple effects of Dylan and the Beatles' synergy endure. Artists from Kendrick Lamar to Taylor Swift cite both as influences, blending poetic lyricism with genre-blurring sounds. As McCartney's revelations show, their story is a testament to the transformative power of artistic connection, and a reminder that even legends start with a shared joint and a leap into the unknown.